Hi, good morning, Arizona. My name is Ryan Wilson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona State Chapter of NORML. With us today, we've got Mike Robinette from Southern Arizona NORML and Mo Esnani. Mo, you're involved in several different businesses, aren't you?
I am, yeah. We have the downtown and D2 dispensaries here in Tucson, the I Lava brand, and then we also have a cultivation facility where we produce a lot of flower. So that goes mostly into our stores.
Awesome. I'd really like to know how you got into cannabis in the first place.
So what's interesting is when the original law passed in 2010, I was actually watching the way that was playing out in November. And as you know, the votes were, getting counted all the way up to Thanksgiving. And I realized my background being in healthcare information systems, it was going to be a pretty complex process. You were kind of getting into this new flavor, this new era of cannabis, rather, where everything was going to be a lot more regulated. And Arizona was obviously on track for that. And I think that's where I kind of combined my passion for it, or my curiosity about it more so, along with the fact that I did know a little bit about healthcare compliance and kind of what agencies like the Department of Health Services would be looking for. And I think prior to that, in 2006, when my mom first got breast cancer, it was type 2, and I saw her go through chemo and radiation. And this was in Utah. There was no real, legal or other option really for cannabis, especially in that age, back then. So again, I think seeing that and the helplessness of it, and then, again, it occurred in 2014, and I was able to help her, but she passed in 2016. So there was a lot of, the personal reason initially, at the same time understanding that I might have the right skill set, at least, to deal with the regulated market as that came to existence.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that about your background there with the regulation side, the compliance side of stuff there. Is it everything that you thought it would be, getting into the cannabis space?
I think it was probably one of the toughest things, understanding this, dealing with the different personality types throughout our industry, knowing that perception of rules can depend on different inspectors at DHS, and not taking that personally. You'll start to learn a lot of things just about being regulated by an agency who's also learning how to regulate you at the same time. And I think that's why it was a humbling experience for all of us, because in 2013, when we opened up downtown, I remember between August when we opened and December, the verification system went down at maybe like half a dozen, maybe even a dozen times. And that meant we had to stop serving patients every time that went down. And we started to have those more candid conversations with DHS, like, hey, this is me personally, and Will Humble, just what can I do to help? Do you want me to beta test a new version? So we actually did get that going. I did help beta test, another version of the verification system back then, when we were still on some very primitive software and stuff like that, state was. But yeah, I mean, that did come in handy back then, and it was just my work experience, really.
That's pretty cool. And so when you started really getting into the industry here out here in Arizona, what was the biggest challenge that you came across?
If we go back to the inception of this, I would say the toughest part was understanding the legislature then. Okay, so the legal hurdles around our business were, first of all, Governor Brewer at the time filed this lawsuit to stop the implementation of medical marijuana. That hurt a lot of people. We barely survived that when we were trying to get leases signed and, having costs and things like that. And then having the governor push the program out 9 months, those kinds of, you don't see that coming. You can't plan for that, right? So things like that happen. And then I think also what the legislature was doing, back then we had this Democrat named Steve Farley who was trying to push a 300% tax on medical marijuana. We had a Republican named, I don't remember actually who it was, who tried to push, a bill that would allow civil forfeiture against dispensary agents, dispensaries, and patients. And I remember the number was like 1411 or something from the 2012 or 2013 legislative session. And without an industry, there were no lobbyists. It was hard, to see some of these things come in. I know Michael was involved back then, even in trying to stop, some of these, again, new, just crazy ideas that were being thrown in the legislature. But yeah, I was there on the back end helping in any volunteer way I could, and just like you guys are now. And that's kind of how we got here, is fighting some of those small battles that most people don't know happened.
What's the most rewarding aspect of the work that you do?
I think just seeing the impact, right? There's something where when you make a product, and you see that it's changing a 90-year-old woman's life, in some way, or it's helping a child who's, got a condition where they can't even eat and they're able to take RSO. So I think that's something that is fulfilling in a different kind of way that is not obviously, financial or anything like that. It's more holistic. So I think that aspect of it is by far the most fulfilling. And I think when you look at it, just being able to build, we started with 3 employees in 2013. Today we're at over 130, I think, as adult use. As adult use gets closer, we're probably going to see, I think, at least a 20% increase in our employees over the next, I want to say, 6 to 12 months. So we'll see how that plays out, again, depending on, how they roll out the program. But Prop 207 passes. I don't want to count that one just yet. But, I think that aspect of it, too, is being able to create jobs. And they're all here in Tucson, which, doesn't have quite the booming economy that Phoenix does. So it's always nice to be able to participate in that, too.
Well, relative to jobs and creation, a lot of times in our work with NORML people ask, hey, can you have any advice on how do I get into the cannabis industry? Could you just quickly, given the fact that there will be, like you had alluded to, 20% increase in jobs relative to adult use, what advice do you have someone who's outside of the industry looking to get into the industry?
So I think that question, right, the most effective answer I can tell somebody is to understand the products that exist today. I know a lot of people feel like indica, sativa, and hybrid are classifications that may not matter, but understanding what all those things do, understanding different modalities, because even if it goes adult use, it doesn't mean it loses its effect if it's in a certain modality. And I think that's when we transition from a medical to wellness real program, if you will, being able to understand those concepts. If you're working for a business like ours, is important. Patient education or consumer education, at the end of the day, is going to be one of the most important aspects. And if you come in an interview and you don't know what a tincture is, it makes it tough for everybody, right? But we've seen a lot of that. I think that's why understanding as much about this, maybe reading, there's this one book called Cannabis Pharmacy, that I think reading things like that's the best advice I can give somebody right now, is to educate yourself. We know that there's no, university or community college program here that trains people for this. We hope to see that actually in the near future as our industry grows. It's necessary to have education for people who want to work in this industry. But, right now, I think it's going to be mostly self-education and reading a lot of leaflet articles and, and also reading books like I just said, Cannabis Pharmacy.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's pretty interesting on the education side there. And I guess standardization of exactly the processes, what you need to know, the basics, right? That's going to be probably one of the biggest pieces right there, is if everyone has that, same base knowledge and understanding. It's not, misconceptions, being brought into the mix and, causing confusion, especially when you're dealing with, the consumer or the patient.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, and I think we've gotten to a point today where if you do read some of these books and you do, keep up on articles, leaflet read maps, what have you, and see where things are and what's working and what product lines, what's the difference between an edible versus a tincture. Again, I go to things like that. I think that helps people, explore where exactly they want to focus on. Do they want to be on the retail side? Do they want to be on the cultivation side? Do they want to be, doing extraction and packaging and stuff like that? So it depends.
Yeah. So, another question I had for you, Mo, was you were talking about the patients, right? And the effect that you could have on people and just watching them come out in essence, right, of, whatever kind of situation that they're in and improving their lives, right? What would you say that you guys do different that sets you apart from the competitors?
I think we take a real personal approach to it. And I think, when I gave you a little bit of the backstory, that always ends up being one of the reasons why, right? And it's because I really believe in product safety. I do believe that anybody who's taking anything made by us should never have any kind of negative consequence, right? That's kind of your founding principle. So when you start from that, it's really, all right, what can I do to enhance THC or CBD products in a way that makes sense? So one of the things we did is my fiance Adriana, who you all know, she has a spinal cord injury and she has neuropathic back pain. So topical wise, there was nothing in the market that really was working effectively to help manage that pain. So we actually worked with a group, or part of a group with Andy Wiles to come up with a formula to have essential oils, THC and CBD, that focuses on neuropathic pain. And the costs were a little exorbitant, when you looked at it, if you started with the cost part. But we just said, just come up with the best formula and I'll figure out the cost. So what I did is importing Corsican helichrysum from the south of France, doing, blue cypress directly from Australia. To help bring the cost down, we created the I Lava Touch product, which again, helped her. She helped R&D it. And if it helped her with her severe level of pain, it was going to be something that was going to be effective. So I think taking that approach to it, where we're not just looking at cannabinoids and terpenes, but also if we bring other things like essential oils in the mix, how's that going to change, the efficacy of the product?
Sure, and I'm sure like R&D right now is still pretty difficult to be able to really get a good test base going, right, to be able to determine the outcome of whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I'm not calling this a clinical trial or anything like that. It's more so when you do any kind of product development, you want to go through iterations. So for that, to get it to market was like 9 months because we kept on testing and testing and testing different versions of it and all of that. And I think same thing with our Delta 8 product line. Nobody else was doing it in a way where it was easily accessible. So I think that's kind of been my focus. Even our new edibles that we launched, Indica PM, it's one thing, it's sleep. I don't try to do too much with any one product. The touch isn't going to do 9 different things for you. But if it does a couple things right, that's great, right? And I think that's the thing, being focused. It's often hard in our industry. I've seen it become much more sophisticated recently where people are like, this product is going to do this. Here are the test results. And again, that's why I've always been a big believer in testing. We've tested over 5,000 samples even before this mandate, kicks in. But I think knowing your potency, knowing the safety levels and all of that has always been important to us.
Yes, and it's exciting to see what's happening with Prop 207 and the support that the community, well, not just the community, but Arizonans have been showing towards Prop 207. What do you think that's going to do to the cannabis marketplace? And how do you think that's going to impact your clients, your customers? As you move forward, or we move forward with legalization.
I think the good news is that Arizona has already built up enough infrastructure at this point to where I think there'll be a lot of product available. I don't think you're going to see any kind of shortage or anything like that. As long as everybody keeps pumping like they are and continuing to expand like they are. Where it's obviously a very logistical. You got to be on point right now and keep on, expanding your facility. We're building out new flower rooms, and I think you see that in a lot of different buildings right now in the state. The other part of it more so is I think the people who have always had more of an affordability issue with cannabis, this helps them because they'll be able to grow 6 to 12 plants, depending on if there's only one person or two people living in their house, they're 21 or over. And I think that will also, we're not trying to tell everybody that you only have to buy marijuana from us. That's the nice thing about being able to grow your own. That actually is one of those concepts that I think is really what is going to make this a much better initiative than anything we've seen, is being able to do that and people being able to innovate in their own homes at the same time. What we're going to be doing as an industry is doing more R&D to make sure that the products we are putting out are not only safe, but are also going to address like whatever needs people have specifically in adult use versus medical.
That's awesome. Getting back over to the testing side of things here, there's a comment that just came in. If you don't mind, I'm going to throw it up. That's actually a question here. Is DHS authorized any labs in Tucson? Do we know the answer to that question as of right now?
Actually, if I may pull something up really quick, which will be an official response, because DHS has a living document on their website where they're saying this is our current list. The answer is unfortunately no. There are 0 in Tucson, and I'm going to put that into. Do I put that in the comments for everybody to see it?
You can. Yeah, I think that should work fine. Yep. Does it let you post it?
Not quite. I'm going to put it in a private chat, and maybe you can share it with everybody.
Perfect. All right.
But yeah, that basically shows you, I think, over half a dozen labs in the valley, and then there's one there up in Snowflake, but unfortunately 0 in Pima County right now in Tucson.
Gotcha. Well, it's coming along, and I know that's when I was on the META call the other day, it seems like there's a lot of people scrambling to try and get all the testing requirements and stuff taken care of for the implementation. So that's exciting to see.
I think, look, I want to be candid. I think people will have some products tested, as of November 1st, but as the labs open up, the biggest problem we have, if you guys want to talk about the labs, is that they're not certified. They're just, they got, these authorizations to be labs, but specific tests. So if you're a lab today, you have to get certified not only for just being a lab, but for heavy metals separately, for potency separately, for pesticides separately, for mycotoxins separately. And there's some labs who have failed pesticides twice. So it puts us in an awkward position because we can't test ourselves, right? We need a third party to do it. But if the third party doesn't exist, I think that's the reality of the situation right now. And I'm just excited to see more labs get open and actually have the right piece of paper from DHS that allows them to test our product.
I have to agree with you on that one. Got another comment actually came in over here. And this is kind of an interesting question as well. If Prop 207 is passed and the governor signs into law December 5th, do you intend to supply clones or seeds?
I think that the way the law is written, it gives DHS the ability to do that. And I think we will have the ability to do that. It's one of those things I'll leave to the attorney who wrote it, but I believe it does. I think all of that will go into effect later, as in early 2021. But I hope that we do. I think we will. But again, I'm not sure about the ability to sell plants or to sell clones or seeds today. We would like to.
Like right off the bat, right? So it's probably going to take a little bit before they get everything all figured out, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And also just to add to that, one thing I want to say, I want to do it, but there's also another problem that is a 2010 problem. A lot of cities and towns were not pro-marijuana, pro-medical. So they came up with these size limitations, which are just absurd. And now we have physical distancing required. So that's another issue I think needs to be addressed here, along with adult use, is we'll have to stock this inventory. Plants are not light inventory to stock. They're living inventory. As you guys know, they're very easy to kill. So, when it comes to seeds, they're obviously more compact. If we're limited to 4,000 square feet here in Tucson and we're supposed to stock not just enough inventory for medical, but for adult use, have quarantine testing, and have plants, we need to increase the size limit, right? That's the other thing. So I just want to share some of the pragmatic problems that we're having, because I think people are always like, why aren't dispensaries doing this? And it's because somebody tied our hands on these issues a long time ago, and we're now trying to get out of that. Right.
Yes, there's definitely going to be challenges, and what would you call that? Growing pains, as you described it at the very beginning of this industry back in 2010, right? As things started to take off, no one really knew exactly how it was going to go, and you're all kind of learning together. Mike, did you have any questions for Mo?
I really appreciated Mo's advice for people interested in getting involved. Mo, relative to the transition with Prop 207 from, in essence, creating a dual system, given how Proposition 207 is set up with the licensing, do you see that as being advantageous to creating a transition that should be much smoother than other states have experienced relative to going to adult use?
I absolutely do. I think that was one of the founding principles of this initiative, was to make sure that it was implemented in such a smooth way that people shouldn't even see the difference. That if you're a card holder, when you have a state with 280,000 patients, you don't want any disruption of any kind to them and to the people who will be now able to buy from the same stores and in the new stores that will be able to open up in the future. So I think the way this was done was the smoothest way possible. It's like, all right, if you're already operating, you can start using your supply chain until more supply chain opens up, really, in the state. And that's the smartest way to do it, as others like Illinois have shown us, where the price just goes up through the roof because there are no cultivation facilities that can feed the need. And over here, I want to reassure people that there are massive cultivation facilities that are being built, not mine, but that they'll be able to fulfill a lot of the wholesale and then the retail needs that are out there.
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Mo. I'd like to wrap it up here. Thanks, Mike Robinette.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Great seeing you guys.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Arizona, you have a wonderful day. Bye now.